formally open. It is March 18th, 2025, the Littleton Conservation Commission meeting, and we are still on Zoom for maybe one more meeting, or maybe no more meetings. So, okay, let's go ahead and approve the minutes from March 4th, 2025. Does anyone have any omissions or corrections to the draft minutes?
I just have a handful of them here. So let's see. So under the Community Preservation Act review one, if we could just throw in where it says that I'm awaiting quotes to include in the walkway reconstruction, if we could just say Long Lake Frog Pond walkway reconstruction. And then let's see, further down under the RDA for 10 Sarah Indian Way, we did include Paula Forsyth Torrielli at the beginning, saying that he was present or she was present with the applicant. Typically, we'll just have like the engineers or the representatives with the the applicant at that beginning part, and maybe we could just list about halfway down where it says Miss Forsyth Torrielli raised concerns. We could just include her address there.
Yep.
And let's see, just had a couple more. 195 to Headland Road, Healy Corner. It's just missing the road after 195 to Hadawon. And then it says Mr. Ringwall has requested, it should maybe say the withdrawal of the notice of intent.
Was that on the first one or the second withdrawal?
Actually, both of them.
Okay.
And then in 35 Queen Road just needs road added. Again, Mr. Ringwald has requested the withdrawal of the notice of intent. And I think that was it.
Okay, cool. Thank you for those edits. Anyone have anything else? If not, do we have a motion to approve as amended?
Make a motion to approve the meeting minutes as amended.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Ed. Roll call.
Roll call vote. Kyle.
Oh, Maxfield, aye.
Ed.
Ed Foltz, aye.
Carl.
Carl Melberg, aye.
Michael.
Michael Livingston, aye.
Sarah.
Sarah Seward, aye.
And myself, aye. It's unanimous.
Okay. Before we move on, does anyone have anything they would like to add to administrative discussions? Tim, I think you want to add a DCR update. Anybody have anything else they'd like to add to that list? Okay. If not, let's go ahead and start with land use permit requests, Cloverdale Story Walk. That was included in your packet. Tim, anything we need to know in particular outside of what was given to us for the land use permit for Cloverdale? It's from April 18th, which is Friday, and then the following week for 1 week till April 28th, the Monday.
I don't believe so, but we have Linda here. To speak
great.
to this. I'm promoting
Okay.
her.
Yep. Do you want to move her over to panelist?
Yep.
Okay. Linda, you're going to magically appear as a panelist. If you'd like to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about the story walk, that would be great. And thank you for filling out the land use permits. And Linda, you're muted, just so you know.
Okay.
Oh, now you're good.
I was rejoining, so I didn't hear if you said something.
Yeah, so you're all set, Linda. We can hear you and see you. So if you'd like to introduce yourself, and we're excited that you're going to be using Cloverdale.
Great. I'm Linda Jensen. I'm from First Connections Acton, and we're really looking forward to putting a story walk up for April School Vacation Week.
Okay, great. Have you ever done a story walk before?
We have done numerous, yes.
Okay, fantastic. Commissioners, anyone have any questions for Linda? Okay, if not, can I have a motion to approve this land use permit for the story walk?
I'll make a motion that we approve the land use permit for the story walk at Cloverdale.
Okay. I second. All those in favor?
Ed.
Ed Foltz, aye.
Kyle.
Kyle Maxfield, aye.
Carl.
Carl Melberg, aye.
Sarah.
Sarah Seward, aye.
Michael.
Michael Livingston, aye.
And myself, aye. It's unanimous.
Great. Best of luck, Linda. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Okay. Next is the land use permit request. Yep. Invasive species stockpile burn. Tim, who's going to speak to that?
So the property owner couldn't make it tonight. A little bit of history on this. Rick Finley and others at LCT have been working with a property owner whose land abuts YAP at addressing this patch of invasives. It's been going on for a couple years now. I believe I have a photo, an aerial, to show you guys the location. Let me see if I can share my screen. Give me 1 second. It's the one that I don't have up, of course. Anyways, this patch, I mean, the first time I went out there, it was for one of our Weed Warrior pulls where we were taking down black swallowwort. There are other invasives in that area too. There's bittersweet, I think multiflora rose, and somebody had came in and actually brush mowed the area, knocked everything down pretty good, and it's been just a reoccurring hand pulling over there ever since. So they've got a stockpile of invasives over there at this point, and the idea being to burn the stockpile, go after a burn permit. I've been talking with Steele McCurdy, the fire chief, about this, and he said it can be done. They just have to wait for the winds to be north-northwest. And so he recommended having like a period of time where this permit would be open for, because obviously we don't know when those winds are going to meet those conditions. All right, I'm going to share my screen. I've got it up now. So this is YAP right here. Can you guys see?
Yes.
This is YAP. Danielle is the abutter. I believe this is her property right here, and she's been working with Rick for a couple years now, going after this whole area. It was pretty bad, almost entirely invasives. And so the stockpile is right about here in this area. And yeah, I talked with Steele, and he said he would waive the fee for this. And yep, that's about it. So
Okay.
I was not aware of this happening before on conservation land. I went back and looked at other land use permits, and I didn't see it, so I wasn't sure. But
Well, but remember, we haven't been using land use permits for, they haven't been around forever. So
Right.
I don't know, it could predate it. I don't know if any commissioners are aware of any controlled burns on this type of property. Okay. Does anybody have any questions about this or thoughts?
Are they going to be using a burn barrel?
that I'm not
I'm not sure that I'm too comfortable with them just setting a fire. Even with watching the winds and stuff, I mean, that's going to char that space where that where that pile is, which may already be bad underneath it anyway, if it's been there a while, but I would be more comfortable if they were using a controlled barrel or dumpster, something metal.
Yeah.
Tim, who would be the actual applicant for this? Like, who would be spearheading this?
Yep. It would be, her name is Danielle Ferrier.
Okay.
Yep. She's the one who's been working with Rick on this area lately.
Okay. I think commissioners, anybody have any thoughts? I think maybe just to have Tim give her this feedback, and specifically Ed's as well. Do we have any opposition to that type of a controlled burn in something that's appropriate for the fire department and also enclosed area?
I have in the opposition. I do have a question, and maybe it's silly, but does he want the wind exactly north-northwest or between north and northwest?
I think it could be either.
Okay.
Anywhere in between. Yep.
Because I know, I mean, the wind, at least where I am, is always northwest.
Oh, I gotcha.
So, but rarely directly from the north or close. So, maybe I'm being too particular.
Yeah, well, certainly we could get that clarified, and I think we would want some letter of support from the fire chief as well, just to document that conversation.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Is-
So
is-
I don't know if I have. Oh, go ahead, Carl.
Yeah, I was wondering, was the fire department's gonna be on site, correct, when this is done?
I'm not sure if they have to be on site when this is done because it's not like a prescribed burn. This is just a regular burn
Right.
permit. I believe they have to be notified when
Oh,
this is
so-
occurring.
Yeah, the applicant's gonna have to notify the fire department the day and time that they intend to have the burn, so that the fire department's aware. It could stop by if they so choose.
And are we making the assumption that there's going to be water, like a hose from the
Yeah.
house?
That's a requirement of the burn permit. Yeah, you have to have sources of water.
Okay.
Did he pick
Are-
the direction of the wind? Because in the picture that was up there, it looked like there was a patch of woods on one side and open field on the other. So he was looking for the flame to be headed toward the field.
I think he was looking for it to be going away from the
Yeah,
houses.
away from
Mhm.
homes. Yeah.
Okay.
Well,
Yep.
you don't want it going towards a field because those things will ignite
Well,
really
Yes,
fast.
yeah, that's a large part of the reason why I don't want them to just light a brush pile on fire either. You
I
know,
mean, so there's, I guess I'm not opposed to containing it. I have two questions with that. One, if this area is full of invasives, are we that concerned of the ground getting burned below it? And then two, this is a pretty common thing across town, right? I don't personally, I've had burn permits. I do a pretty much an annual burn to clean up brush and stuff that the trees have shed in the yard. I don't know if there'll be pushback on that at all, or it just doesn't. It's not a typical thing. So personally, I'm comfortable with them procuring the land use permit, but more specifically the fire permit and following whatever the fire chief asks them to do.
I'm in the same spot, Kyle. Like we probably once every 2 years we pull a burn permit, and the fire department does a pretty good job making sure we don't put ourselves in a bad spot.
Absolutely. Yeah, I've had them stop by. At a minimum, they drive by. Yeah, I can wave to them as they drive by. They slow down, and but yeah.
I think, Tim, when we go to do this, we'd put it on as an agenda item, so just to have the applicant come in with the letter and just come up with a plan, so that way we can have this as a formal time. So if there is someone that has a question, such as a neighbor, they can chime in.
Sure. Yeah.
Okay, great. All right, let's go ahead. Possible need for in-person meeting after the 31st. Tim, doesn't sound like we have an update yet.
Yeah, so we actually got one. I think it was on Thursday that the House had passed a bill to extend it through, I don't think it was entirely through, but into, I think, 2027. And that's going to be going to the Senate for a vote. I thought it was by the end of this week. But I'm not sure. So it's possible that we'll have something in place before our next meeting, but I mean,
Okay.
I'm
It
not
needs to
sure.
be in place before our next posting date or the next meeting date.
That's the thing. I'm not sure.
Yeah, so I think we're gonna have to, right now, keep both open for commissioners in person and online, and hopefully that we would know about the vote before you have to post it, which is that following Thursday.
Yep.
Okay, great. Assistant Conservation Agent update?
So we sent out an offer to the applicant that we interviewed, and we should be hearing back from them on Thursday or by Thursday.
Okay, great.
so the fact that you sent out a offer suggests you worked out the hours, what the actual hours are going to be.
Yes. So the offer was for 25 hours.
Okay.
And Ed, I should expand on that a little bit. The idea is that in the long run, somewhere between the water department and conservation may need to be some additional support for clean lakes. In the short term, the water department is going to help facilitate some of the things that need to be done until we can figure out what the resolution of, frankly, what the needs are before we figure out what the staffing is. So I think what we heard at the budget meeting about this idea of pushing up our assistant agent position to 40 hours, the concept makes sense, but it was premature in the sense that we didn't know what the scope of the work was going to be. So the idea would be in the intervening year, we figure out what the scope of work would be for those additional hours. And if we have to hire a part-time person or the water department takes it on, very flexible there, and try and sort it out. But it was too nebulous of a role to just shove the hours up to 40 and figure it out.
No, understood. This is the last time we had some question about how many hours it was going to be and all that, so.
All right, so let's go ahead. We're going to pause administrative discussions. It's 7:45. We're going to open the continued public hearing. Notice of intent, 91 Mattawanakie Trail, Mass DEP 204-1014. Bylaw waiver is required. Addition and renovation of existing deck. And we have Mr. Eastman. I see that you're with us and you have your hand up. We're going to promote you to panelist and also allow you to talk. Okay, so Mr. Eastman, you should be, so currently, Mr. Eastman, your microphone is off and your camera is off. Oh, now your microphone.
How's
Yep.
the voice? Can you folks hear me?
There you go. Perfect.
Yes, we can.
Welcome.
Thank you. Good evening, folks.
Okay. I know we had some challenges at the last meeting, so we're glad that your audio is working.
Yes, I'm on my wife's computer, so that works.
Okay, great. Mr. Eastman, thank you for providing your detailed notes for us as well. The commission has had a chance to see those as well. If you would like to just circle back around and tell us what you've learned and what your thoughts are. And I know, yep. And you have done some calculation of runoff as well, and would love to know how you got to some of those calculations.
Yes, the information that I provided shows basically I took some of the 1 inch rainfall, 62 gallons per 100 square foot, and that was from New Hampshire Homeowners Guide for Stormwater Management. And I took that and extended it to the roof. So the deck roof, the 12 by 12 roof that I put on for 1 inch, that would be 89 gallons of runoff. So the plan was to put a gutter and a downspout and to retain that water underneath the deck. So the actions that I had defined was to cap and bury the existing drain under the deck. And again, that will allow the water to stay under the deck. Remove the blocks, concrete blocks that were there, and then dig a swale or a trench under the deck. And then that will collect the water running from the downspout.
Mr. Eastman, if I can pause for just 1 second. Tim, do you have the images to put on for us, for Mr.
Yeah.
Eastman?
Yep, I could share those now.
Yeah,
So
typically just show the figures 1 through 4. I think those are the photographs,
Yep.
and folks can get a sense of what it looks like.
Tim, can you blow that up? There you go.
Yeah, I'm not sure what's happening here, why it's showing 2 pages at once, but I will do my best.
So commissioners, you may recall this is a second story, and so there will be roofs associated. Okay, so commissioners, if you have questions, you do also have this information in your packet as well.
Oh, excellent. Okay. Yeah, the information was based on a 1-inch storm, and I obtained that from the New Hampshire Stormwater Management. The weather gods are not with me, because the day before, we had almost 2 inches of rain, in southern Mass. So I looked at some other things. The 100-year, 1 hour rate is 2.5 inches. And that was from the National Weather Service. So I took a look at, Tim, if you can call up the very last page, and it shows the area under the deck. And I put a trench, a shallow trench there. And based on that dimension, 3 feet wide, 8 inches, 8 feet long, 1.5 foot deep. That comes out to about 89 gallons, which would be the runoff for 1 inch of water. If I extrapolated the runoff for the 12 by 12 to the 100-year, runoff for 1 hour, it would be 223 gallons of water that I would have to deal with. So I just did some quick calculations, and if it's agreeable, I can supply that later. But if I went with the trench, I keep it at 8 feet long, keep it away from the house, 4 feet wide, 2 feet deep, that would get me to 202 gallons. And again, the target is 223. If I peeled up the pavers on the patio, in the area that I defined in the attachment, I get another 12 gallons. That gets me to 214, which is 9 gallons short of the 100-year, 1 hour rate of 2.5 inches. And again, what I'm trying to do is keep the water that comes off the roof, the new roof, under the deck. And the only thing I mentioned is that the concrete wall that's next to this trench is 39 inches to the capstone. It's 3 feet, call it. So I'm talking about digging a trench a couple of feet back, 2 feet deep. And I feel comfortable with that. I don't think it would ever fill up with water and knock the wall down. So that would be my approach to, not just do the 1 inch, but go for the 2.5 inches of rain for a 100-year storm for 1 hour.
Okay, thank you for that. Let's, commissioners, do you want to offer some feedback or questions for Mr. Eastman?
Mr. Eastman, the volumetric calculations that you did are based on all of the water coming off of the roof of the house, or is this just the water coming off of the roof of the deck that you've proposed adding?
Just the deck. That's what I'm adding new. That will have to deal with the rainwater that comes off.
Yep.
So it's the 12 by 12 foot deck, only that water.
Only that. Okay.
And you're trying to convey all of it to underneath the deck?
Correct.
Is that it would also you would have some sort of collection system to bring it to that one spot?
Yes.
That's what the gutter from the second floor deck is.
That's basically where the water goes now. It goes through the deck boards.
Right.
The packet has pictures of how he plans on doing that.
Yeah, that's like the gutter that I was.
Yeah, Tim, if you go to that last page again.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a gutter and then a pipe that goes down at an angle on the next picture after that one,
Yes, that's correct.
down into the pit.
So Chase, I have a question for you. More, I guess, of procedure. I'm very appreciative of the effort that Mr. Easton's putting into this. What triggers us looking at stormwater calcs? It's a defined square footage, correct?
Yeah. What is it? The bylaw is 10% additional.
Yeah.
10% additional impervious surface, I think. And I think there might also be a absolute number, but I've got to believe we're below that absolute number.
Yeah. I get, not trying to find a way to not do that. I'm very appreciative of doing this, and we should be doing it. I'm just trying to help figure out what the most efficient way of doing this is, under what mechanism.
This kind of feels like he's grabbing more water than he is today, in the sense of today it's just a deck and the water goes wherever it wants to go.
Well, there's a mechanism in place currently. There's a drain system currently. He's going to dismantle that.
I'm wondering how that water's all going to drain away, and how is it going to compromise that wall or other structures there? I mean, if it is that much water, it's going to have to go someplace fairly quickly.
I guess my question is, being a New Englander, when we have the freeze thaw, when the ground's frozen, but then we have these rains, where is that water going to ultimately disperse to?
Into the soil, basically, or evaporate.
If the ground is frozen?
He's talking about like the rain events that we would have had a few weeks ago when you still had frost on the ground. I mean, it would turn into sheet flow, but that would be just like everywhere else, right? You're seeing that.
Yeah, I mean, I could argue that the water that on the 12 by 12 deck that's there now, the water hits it and basically either goes through the boards or runs off the edge. So currently the water for the last, 20, 30 years has been going through the deck, existing deck, and into the land below it. And I've never seen it run over that wall. So it's getting absorbed, if that's the right word, into the soil below the deck.
Is there, I'm trying to remember the site, is there any opportunity outside of that wall to treat the water in like a rain garden or something above before it goes down the slope to the lake?
If you look at the picture, figure 1, Tim,
Yeah.
I appreciate what you're doing, by the way. If you look at the patio that's there in front of that photo,
Yeah.
I went through and looked at some of the calculations on that. Just say I peeled all of those pavers up and put crushed stone in. And that's only about 50 gallons that I could buy. If I took the downspout on the second floor, not running under the deck, but just dumped it right where those pavers are on that figure 1. That's only about 50 gallons.
Well, so we have to be a little careful of what we're defining as 50 gallons, because that's just volumetric, right? That's not
correct.
That's not going to include any sort of infiltration that you experience.
That is correct.
I understand where you're getting at with only 50 gallons.
Yeah.
In practicality, it would take more than that, as it will start to infiltrate immediately.
Yes.
I'm not sure that that's the answer that we want to do, is tear up a patio and put crushed stone. But
I wasn't thinking of tearing the patio. I was just wondering on the grassy area, was there any opportunity to do a rain garden there?
What's on the left picture? The left picture in this figure 1, where we have like the patio furniture. What's on the right side? There is a flower bed. Yeah. What else is on this side? I haven't unfortunately been to this site. So.
It's a slight hill.
Away from the house or towards the house? I guess
away from the house.
Slopes down to the water. It's
and
steep.
that goes. That side goes to the water.
Yeah.
If we're talking about frozen ground, though, no matter what, if you put in a rain garden or whatever, that ground's still going to be frozen.
I get that.
The trench with the gravel and so on and so forth, while it'd be frozen, that's not going to be frozen. Well, I'm assuming that it won't be frozen solid, and that any water that comes down would thaw to some extent. That, right?
Why would that thaw faster or differently than?
Because it's more surfaces for the water to break up the ice. he says, as he sounds less confident. Question.
I honestly, like the frozen ground to me,
It's just gonna flow over the ground if it's frozen, it seems.
but it does that everywhere, right? I guess regardless of if we're talking about in his deck or in his front
So-
yard or in my backyard.
Right, so what is the problem or the question that we're trying to answer? Maybe I've gotten myself confused.
We're just trying to find a place to put the water that's coming off the new structure on the second floor.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where I can get my head around potentially infiltrating it at the base of that wall. To Kyle's point, the idea of doing stormwater based on total volumes that will come down is in a very, very conservative way of doing it, right? If this would shed 50 gallons of water in a 1-inch storm in an hour, if you look at infiltration basins that engineers design, that we might be looking at infiltration rates that would consume most of that 50 gallons without any actual storage capacity. I'm a little wary of re-infiltrating water upstream, up gradient of that block wall. I understand it's receiving water now, but it's also shutting water off via the deck. I think we risk making a bigger problem by asking the applicant to do that. I also don't think this is a major risk to the resource areas because we've got essentially vegetated strips all around the patio. So my preference here would be to accept the applicant's idea of putting essentially an infiltration trench at the base of that wall. To the extent that there is some runoff off of that, it's captured in the sort of vegetated area, the lawn outside of that. But I mean, as I said, when this first came up, I'm also not sure that we need to do anything with this. I think a trench is helpful, but I'm not that worried about it, I guess.
Yeah, I agreed with you at that time too. I think it was more of getting this to pass the waiver, if anything, and not what we're doing with the water was my concern.
I think we have to do some type of mitigation because we are allowing construction within the 50.
Right, and I think that's where I agree with you, Carl. That's right. There needs to be something, but it's not based on the rainwater. It's based on the construction that's happening, right? Not the water.
That's how I'm looking at it. Basically, right.
But it does feel like he's trying to ameliorate, whatever the word is I'm looking for. He's changing out the deck and what have you. Yes, but he's also provided what seems like a fairly extensive water management plan.
I totally agree. I absolutely appreciate what he's gone through. I just kind of echo Chase's concerns with if you're dumping the 2.5 inches of 1 hour rain underneath that deck behind that wall, we don't know infiltration rates of the soil down there. Is it going to infiltrate into the ground, or is it going to understand that it sees water now and he hasn't seen any issues, but it hasn't been seeing that total volume.
I see that as
higher.
I see that as a bigger risk to the resource area that we induce the failure of that wall, and that's bad for everybody here.
What are your thoughts about removing some of those pavers on the downside of that block wall in order to make an area that may be able to absorb more of that?
I actually really like that idea. I think that meets the needs and interests of the waiver.
Mm-hmm.
It goes above and beyond what we would require outside of the 50, but we're within the 50.
Right.
I can get my head around
What are your
that.
thoughts in terms of just removing the pavers, or to kind of scarify that a little bit and make that an actual structure or something that's going to help create capacity?
Like a gravel bed there of some sort.
Yeah.
Didn't he already say that was his plan, to take the pavers up and put in another 10 foot by 3 foot or whatever? Whatever. I'm at a loss for words tonight. Sorry, but a gravel pit, if you will.
Right.
Yeah, fill it with 3/4 inch crushed, stone.
It'll be a rock garden.
Yeah,
Wouldn't want to dig anything too deep right next to the wall.
Right.
No,
No,
no.
absolutely, absolutely.
Um,
Right. Nope.
But that could be a nice place to put a rock garden and some potted plants on top of it and direct water to it and achieve a significant amount of infiltration, especially during low flow events.
So last question of that, how are you going to direct water to it? Or are you just going to
So
let it, nature get there?
That's what I was going to ask there is what is the water management plan then? Right? Because we haven't, it sounds like we've taken
Because
it off
there
the
is
table.
currently a pipe, which we saw, but the pipe is at a different invert. So like the water doesn't necessarily get there right now. I would say leave that structure in place because it could offer some sacrifice if there was a large water event as well. Mr. Eastman, what are your thoughts of keeping that pipe in place?
Yeah, I have no issues with leaving it in place. As I stated earlier, the intake is actually a little high. And that whole area would have to be flooded before it was actually be useful or utilized, I guess.
Yep. So that's kind of like your overflow mechanism there. Okay.
Yes, that was the original intent.
All right, so commissioners, would someone like to summarize where we are for Mr. Eastman at the moment?
I'm still a little, the only summary that I can offer right now is that we are removing the applicant will be removing some of the patio blocks at the downstream portion of that wall and replacing that with 3/4 inch crushed stone, some sort of crushed stone bed. I guess are the rest of his plans, are we keeping his plans status quo the rest of the way? Putting a trench underneath the deck still? I feel like I'm a little bit more hesitant to do that than.
So commissioners, what are your thoughts on that? Are we in support of not doing something so invasive?
what do you mean not doing something so invasive?
In terms of creating a large, structure or depression behind the wall underneath the deck that's proposed?
If the decision's to remove the patio, I would focus on that area.
Okay.
Right. So what is the stormwater mechanisms now? Where is water collected? Are we just letting water flow off of the roof to wherever it goes and then it finds its way off the wall?
I guess how I understood this, Kyle, is the water is still coming off the roof. It's still like it has been historically, is still landing behind the wall, but during higher flow events, it may sheet flow over the wall. And this blue area shown here is our sort of backup plan. So to the extent that the flow doesn't overtop that, it's like it's always been, although it's been infiltrating more through the slats of the deck rather than an individual area. But the net effect behind the wall, in my opinion, isn't that different. But this is a backup plan in case there's extra flow.
Okay, that's fine. So he's still going to direct the flow. He's going to capture the water, direct the flow to underneath the deck, and let it do its thing. And whatever it can accept will go over the wall. That's fine.
That's how I understand this. But I'm kind of with you. I'm a little confused.
Okay, so are we still going to do the shallow swale and trench underneath the 3 feet by 1.5 by 8?
That's my understanding, and I didn't understand that this plan included pulling up the pavers up top.
It didn't. This is an idea that was just added tonight.
No, it's
That
on
was
the last
discussed.
page.
That was one of the options that I had
Oh.
looked at rather than directing the water under the deck. Hey, is there any way I could let the water go in that paved area? It was something I looked at.
Hmm. Well, if I had to summarize for me, I would say I like the idea of the pit underneath and the directing the water to it and having the extra spot outside the wall, that seems to be a reasonable overflow. And it controls, to the extent you can ever control water, it controls the flow of the water a little more than just letting it come off the roof and hopefully go where we want it to go.
And would you still remove pavers, Ed?
I would not, no. But
Okay.
if we decided we wanted that or needed that, the pavers are somewhat impervious, not as much as if you pull them all up, of course. But, it's not like it's a paved, hard surface all the way around.
Right. And that could be, we could have a monitoring. This could be monitored for over, 1 or 2 seasons to see, that could be the next step, that if there is some type of failure or lack of coordination with the water, that the pavers could be removed.
Yeah, it's a backup plan or an additional if needed. That's where I sit in it anyway.
Okay. Carl, Andrew,
I'm good with the discussion that was just had.
okay. Michael?
I guess I'm okay in general. I just can't help but wonder that collecting that much water isn't going to change how things just end up changing underneath. Will it flow out through the concrete block wall and end up compromising it? And I'm making this up. I don't know, but I see what happens in my yard, and the water moves a lot around.
Right. And to our, Mr. Eastman, to your knowledge, are there any weep holes in that wall when it was constructed?
Yes, there's, a lot of water. If you look at the picture, I think you can even see some of the moss, how it grows. I think the water weeps out there.
Okay. All right. Andrew, any thoughts? Or Kyle?
I guess now, so the applicant has presented us something, and now we're changing it, or we're offering changes. How are we going about this? I thought
Seemed like
just
we kind of
talked-
came back to what the applicant proposed, Kyle.
Did we? I thought they were just talking about not taking out pavers. Didn't they just say we weren't removing pavers? I thought we all agreed that those coming
But
out.
that was at the top. That was
Right.
up at the top. He is removing pavers down by the wall.
Yeah, I guess I got lost with these pavers at the top where these were, and I never saw that as part of the.
Right. So page 3 versus page 4. I think.
I have that open right here.
Figure 1 shows pavers along at the top, and
Yep.
and the plan at the moment that I'm okay with leaves them in place. And
Okay.
as Sarah suggested, we can come back and evaluate in a year or 2 if necessary to see if everything is still going the way it was expected to go. And if not, then there's an option at that time of taking those pavers up and replacing them with gravel to create more space for the water. I'm not sure, what are we asking Kevin to do, Mr. Eastman rather, to do now? Me personally, I'm comfortable with what he's proposed, but that's me.
Do we want to entertain any erosion? Is erosion control on this during construction anywhere? And have we talked about access for construction? Mr. Eastman?
Oh, no, we haven't. I'm sorry. I thought
Okay.
you were asking the commission.
No, asking you. How will materials be brought into the site?
They'd be staged in the front driveway and then hand carried, basically.
And are you hand digging the trenches and so forth?
Yes.
And is the staircase being removed and relocated, or is it staying in the same location?
Same location.
Okay. Commissioners, erosion control, thoughts?
I think we have to protect the pile of dirt that's being dug out from the trench.
Yeah.
I mean, I would say we would make a condition that that doesn't stay on site. I mean,
Yeah.
that volume is so de minimis that why make a pile and create that
Mhm.
potential for any sort of erosion there?
Okay, so do we want erosion control?
I personally don't see if we're just building materials here, we're not
Okay,
disrupting ground. That's
Yeah.
I take. I'm not sure what the added value in that is here.
Tim, do you have any questions on this? Do you feel comfortable? No.
I was going to ask you guys, I was going to kind of recap and make sure we're on the same page. So continuing with the proposed digging that trench under the, what is now the existing deck, taking out the pavers on the lower level, and then revisit or monitoring and revisiting after a year or two whether or not pavers on the upper level need to be removed and gravel needs to be put there for more infiltration. That's correct?
Yep.
Okay.
Right, Commissioner?
Is that super reactionary by us and putting some sort of stress or is Tim gonna have to set an alarm to remind himself to go out there on a day that it rains, a year from now?
Well, you can ask for reporting in your order of conditions after any storm, and you set the threshold, like we do on the bigger projects. You can ask Mr. Eastman when we have a storm that has like the 2 inches to send a photo or let us know how things are going, and you can set those parameters, which puts the onus on the applicant.
Okay.
Tim, you were okay with that?
Yeah, is there what duration do we want to stick with? For how long?
But probably the same as we monitor plants.
Okay.
3 years.
3 years.
And what magic number would be the trigger of the storm? Are we talking 2 inches over a 24-hour period? What would we like to do?
Well, what's considered a decent sized storm?
Well, it seems like we're getting more of the 100 years, but
Oh, that's over 2 inches in an hour. I don't think we do see more of them, obviously, but shouldn't be a yearly thing.
So if somebody wants to-
so arbitrary.
I mean, I think everybody knows what a big storm event is. We seem to have at least one every year.
Right, but I think Sarah's right. You have to quantify that.
I know.
well, I would come back to some of the language that we've used on other sites. So, I mean, I feel comfortable if we're going to get 2 inches within 24 hours.
Yeah, I mean, the SWIP is a half inch of rain, right? A half inch of rain sets off a stormwater monitoring plan
Right.
or inspection.
Yep.
So,
And it should probably be a frequency or an intensity closer to a half inch than 2 inches. I mean,
yeah.
I just looked up the NOAA 14, which is what the Mass Stormwater Handbook uses for a 1 year, 24-hour storm in Boston is 2.5 inches. So in so many words, that should happen about once a year. It's actually, math doesn't quite work out that way, but 2.5 inches doesn't necessarily have to happen every year.
Okay. So what magic number do you want to put in?
One inch.
I say go more than we're not dealing with stormwater inspections here. It's a little bit.
Okay. So 1 inch within a 24-hour period?
So is he, I mean, Mr. Eastman, I don't know how he's gonna measure that, or he's gonna take the word of, what you hear on the radio and TV, how deep.
Doesn't Light and Water, don't they have a monitoring?
Yeah, I think that only goes out monthly though, for monthly totals.
Okay.
We should have multiple 1-inch events in a year. So if we miss one, he'll get another bite at the apple. I'm not
Right.
concerned about that.
Right, so Tim will let you work on that. Okay, does someone want, if we feel comfortable, does someone want to make a motion for this notice of intent?
Could I just go back, Tim, if you could go back to page 1?
Sure.
And I define the actions for improvement. I just want to review those, make sure that we're all in agreement. The first item was cap and bury the existing water intake drain. What I heard was you want me to leave that in place. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yes. Leave. And then remove the concrete blocks adjacent to the retaining wall. I would basically do that only if I was going to dig the trench or the swale, whatever you call it. So if I'm going to do the trench underneath the deck, I will also remove the concrete blocks that are there now.
Mhm.
That's a yes.
Yep.
And then the concrete pavers on the patio below, am I doing that or not? Is that a contingency for backup?
Are you talking about the section in front of the wall?
Yes.
The area you have in blue.
Yeah, that
Yes.
I thought we said was coming out.
So that will be done.
Yes.
Okay. Very good. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. All right. I move that we approve the notice of intent for 91 Mattawanakie Trail, Mass DEP 204-1014.
And waiver.
Yeah, and waiver. U 47-26-0.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All right. Roll call vote. Kyle,
Kyle Maxfield, aye.
Michael,
Michael Livingston, aye.
Chase,
Chase Gerwig guy.
Carl,
Carl Melberg, aye.
Ed,
Ed Foltz, aye.
Sarah,
Sarah Seward, aye.
myself, I. It's unanimous.
Okay, so Mr. Eastman, you'll be receiving some documents from Tim. Please review them and then touch base with him prior to starting your work as well would be great.
Excellent. Thank you very much. I appreciate your time also.
Okay, thank you.
Take
Have a
care.
good night.
Good luck.
Thank you.
Okay, we're going to go back to administrative discussions. Discussion conservation parcel U17-208-0. Tim?
Yep, I'm going to share my screen on this one as well. So this was kind of just to take your guys's oh, why isn't this working? Give me a second.
Hey, Ann.
Mr. Eastman, you're still on.
I'm trying to get out of this.
That's okay. I'll move you away. Yep.
All right, can you guys see this?
Yep.
Perfect.
Yeah.
This is going to take your guys' temperature on a proposal that Parks and Rec had and discussed with me last week. So the parcel is this parcel right here, and it's under the care, custody, and control of Conservation Commission. It gets mowed by the Highway Department, I think once or twice a year. And it's also the area where I believe Rob Rounce was stockpiling some of the invasives from the work he was doing, removing the invasives around Frog Pond. So Parks and Rec has proposed, I guess they've got a lot of requests from the public for storage racks for kayaks and canoes. The idea being they would put storage racks here. People would be able to pay a fee to store their canoe or kayak there for the season, and then the proceeds from that would go towards Clean Lakes Committee work. Wanted to see what you guys thought about it, if it's a non-starter But obviously, if you are interested, there's a lot more discussions into, you know, like what's going on for maintenance and so forth.
Who owns that property?
We do.
Okay.
So
Is
what
it
is,
just an open field?
Yeah, it's mostly just an open field. There is a little there's a tree line here, so it's a little bit vegetated, but most of it is this field.
what would be the protocol for this? Because if they're getting a fee, wouldn't that go into the general fund? You'd have to go to town meeting.
Yeah, I haven't delved into the logistics of on that side. This was more of just a what do you guys think? Yes or
If it's a non-starter, you're not going to bother trying to figure out how to
Exactly.
get an article in front of
Yeah.
town meeting. Fair enough.
Right.
Is it anybody, what happens there now? Just playing kickball or?
I'm really not sure. The only use of it that I know of is that Rob Brown's had some pallets there that he was stockpiling knotweed on.
Right, the Clean Lake Committee was using it too for their removal.
We do have.
Is it currently sand or grass? I'm also thinking of what it's going to do in terms of the impact on that land that actually does have some type of habitat on it, and also infiltration of all these storms, because we know some of the water just runs down those roads.
Right. Yep. We do have Rob here, and he does have his hand raised.
Yep, there you go. Go ahead, Rob.
Property.
Okay, just unmuted. Thank you. I just wanted to say that while I did store some invasives, those invasives were cut along the fence line there. I actually put in well in excess of 100 hours last year removing the various, bad guys in terms of invasive plants. So I wanted to point that out, that it's not just a holding storage area, but whether it was an active area where I pretty much made a great, I think pretty successful for first year. I'm going to certainly have to go back again this year and probably future years, but removed pretty dramatic. I could show you photos, trying to make the area more approachable and more usable. Someone asked the question of how the field is used. It is mowed more frequently than once or twice. I'd say it's almost every 2 to 3 weeks during the season. And because I live very nearby, I don't want to suggest in any way that it's a consistent usage, but the area is used by different groups of 3s and 4s with regard to practicing volleyball, spiking, and passing, as well as soccer skills, etc., as well as croquet. So that's a usage. And I think I just sent to both Tim and Andrew a photo that causes me great concern, because the photo that I sent, if you're able to retrieve it and show it, shows of just 1 week ago the current state in which the Park and Rec allows their own watercraft in an extremely haphazard, in my opinion, very problematic, and I'm very much concerned with them doing similarly to what is a usable field. So I'm personally quite opposed to what I'm hearing for the first time.
I just got
Thank
the
you for your time.
Well, that would require a use permit. I mean, you can't store or park on public property without a permit.
in Rob, I did just get that picture, and yeah, the canoes are all over the place.
Andrew, can you share that or?
Yeah, let me see if I can get it on here.
So Tess, I see that you
But
have your hand
I
up.
think-
So we'll get to you in just a second.
Sorry, I didn't mean to step on Tessa's toes here. But I think we should go into this discussion. And Tim, I appreciate that you just sort of brought it forward as let's take the temperature. I think that was exactly the right approach. I think we should think about this in the context of if it was managed in a way that we were comfortable with, because I would presume that if it was poorly managed, and I agree they've struggled, Parks and Rec has struggled sometimes to manage things like their kayaks and stuff, then we would just withdraw the permit, because I agree it would require some sort of permitting activity or something like that. And if it doesn't work, then we would just say, no, you're not allowed to do that going forward. if I think the relevant question here would be, if it was adequately maintained and managed, would we be willing to? I don't think anyone would be willing to if it was a disaster, right? That's sort of taken for granted.
I have to say, I'm not comfortable with it for two reasons. One, it's an open field with some vegetation and so forth. And when you do what they want to do, now we're going to be trampling down what's there. It's inevitable. The other is, if someone else is going to use conservation land and get a fee, then that fee should not be going to them. It should be going to protection and care of the conservation land.
Yeah, they said it would go to Clean Lakes, right? So it wouldn't
Yeah.
go into Park and Rec. But again, I don't think that's even something we can talk about yet, because
No,
it should go
I-
to the general fund.
My general feel on this, though, is no.
So
What about this idea though? Like we spend a lot of money as a town to acquire conservation land that I don't think any of us would really characterize it this way, but then we spend a lot of time and effort to make sure people can trample all over it. That's why we acquire it. There's I think there are
those
ways.
cases, hiking up in the woods and hiking the fields and stuff, that's one thing. But this is a small parcel that they're going to put watercraft, kayaks, canoes and so forth, which means that you're going to have multiple people, and my emphasis is it's a small parcel. And I know for a fact that if you go out and you have 3 boys hike on a field twice, you've now got a trail. And this land won't be the same after anyone, I'm not saying against Park and Rec, after anyone puts such a project in place.
So Andrew, you shared that photo, but that was is that gravel or sand? That's not of an area gets mowed.
So I
Yeah,
tried
that-
to share it. I think Tim popped it up on the screen, but
Oh, sorry. Okay.
Yeah, that's not a picture of the field that's in question. It was more of the current status of Park and Rec taking care of their equipment.
Okay.
Right?
Let's go ahead. Tess, if you would like to introduce yourself, and look forward to your comment.
Oh, excuse me. Hello, I'm Tess Deegan. I'm the president of the Long Lake Neighborhood Association. And I just want to mention that, yes, the neighborhood has spoken often about a place to put all these very abandoned canoes and kayaks all around the lake shore, and wondered if there was a place to store them well, and not necessarily at this particular location. And in terms of usage of that small piece of land, yes, kids play on it. I find it very pleasant to walk my dog across it. It's quite lovely. I think you're right that building something there would probably trample most of the ground there. But I do see the need for some kind of structure for people to put their boats on. And there would probably be a few folks that would come and pay for a season. Maybe this is not the best location, but it's not a terrible idea.
Yeah, so can I ask a quick question kind of regarding that? That area, as far as I'm aware, around Long Lake is not anywhere near the boat launch, right? So would these individuals have to go to that parcel, retrieve their canoe kayak, walk it through the beach area to get to the boat launch? But I guess what's the mechanism of accessing the lake is the easy way to ask it.
So Kyle, my initial conversation with Parks and Rec, they also proposed that if this were to take place, they proposed moving one of the docks that got permitted when they came in front of us last year and moving it to that location across the street from that parcel. And then maybe having a crosswalk put up there. That was their idea.
Next to the new fishing dock that they just fixed up to. Isn't that all right there?
Okay, so I guess I'm just going to throw out a suggestion here because we've got other conversations that why don't we continue this conversation, but in the meantime, when commissioners have time to go for a drive, to go and visualize so that we can go forth with this conversation. Are we okay with that?
Sounds good.
Okay. Provided we wish to have this conversation, I don't want to speak on behalf of everyone.
I think it's worth having the conversation. I don't know
Okay.
what direction we'll wind up at.
Okay, perfect. All right, thank you. Next discussion, Littleton Water Department created wetlands feature. Oh yes, that's R10-14-0, which you were supplied with that in your folder.
Yeah, I'll share my screen and get it
Yeah.
up here as well.
Thank you, Tim.
So as you guys remember, a part of the water department's Trumbull Well project, they have a CMP, and they have a part of that is to create a ephemeral pool. And we did a site walk with Matt Silverman out there in this general area where they were thinking of creating it. I talked with Matt last week, and they think they can actually get the pool to be right outside of the 100-foot buffer. However, in order to access and get equipment back there, they need to get a small excavator, and they're going to have dump trucks taking out the fill. They need to go. So there's if you can remember from the Monarch filing, there's an intermittent stream. If you guys can see my arrow, that runs right across here. Right. And they would be accessing the area back here through, this is an outdated photo, but there's a parking lot here. And they'd be driving back here right next to the intermittent stream to get to it. So I wasn't sure, because there is access in the 50-foot, if you guys felt that an RDA or an NOI would be appropriate, because it sounds like all the actual excavation and stuff, they can get it out of the 100-foot. It would just be the access within the buffer zone.
So can you remind me who was on that site walk with us? Tim, I think you were there when we actually went through.
I think
Carl, were you with us as well? Because we looked at separate spots and we said specifically, we're not going to do a wetlands crossing.
Right.
And we found some locations that I think were in the 50, but had a much easier access. And that I just feel like we had this conversation and said no in the field.
I thought we kind of ended on them being able to access. So we were out here, right? And so you can't see it here, but there's a wetland over here that extends like this area all the way down to connecting to where you can see this wetland area right here. And they were looking initially at putting one back here. They're now looking at putting one more so in this area. So their access would be along the turtle habitat area.
Is this where that gate was?
The gate, yep, the gate is right down right here.
Mm-hmm. And the field that's up on top, there's no access to that other than this way, right?
Yeah, the only other access that was discussed on site was them getting being able to access from Amazon. So right off of where this imagery is to the right would be a Amazon building. But I think we discussed that wasn't going to be possible, or at least I think Matt said it wasn't going to be possible to get access. Because I think they have
There's a different
traffic in
wetland
that area.
And not through Monarch.
No, yeah. Trying to think. Yeah, they would have. I mean, they'd have to come down Monarch to get to this area. This road right here is Monarch.
Right.
So if they go up that way, what will happen when they're finished? Are they going to restore the the path, road, whatever you want to call it, that they've used to get the equipment back there?
You mean in the trees that they're gonna have to take down to get in there?
That's one of my pet peeves, so.
So I believe they would be, the equipment would be going up here, which is all, like this area
Yeah.
right here to get in from the turtle area. I believe this is all outside the 100-foot buffer zone.
Mhm. But to get up to there, from where the white stops and the gate is, aren't there like a ton of, I'm trying to remember, because there were some big trees, I thought.
Can I make a suggestion? I think, Tim, they're gonna have to plot out their alternatives and have another site walk.
Yeah,
Before,
Because, but we've spent time on this site. I thought we were very clear when we left. This is what we wanted. And now it sounds like that has changed again. So I would tell them to plan out all their alternatives and plot them, and then we'll just have another site walk.
Sarah, I think the question here though is, should they just come in with a notice of intent? And if we're asking them
Absolutely.
for alternatives and we're asking them for a site walk, I think
Yep.
the answer is, yeah, we just need a notice of intent.
They're
And then we
supposed to-
can go through
they're
the
supposed
normal
to
process. Right.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Okay. Thank you, Tim.
Yep, and just like this is, so they're gonna have other notices of intent for the turtle recreation area that the other two sites.
Right, but they're under different not jurisdictions, but what am I trying to say? They each have their own,
Like CMP.
they're all separate work orders initially.
Right, yeah.
So, and they're all guided by different organizations, so they're gonna have more than one.
Yeah, I mean this yeah, that.
Okay. Sorry, couldn't pick my words. Okay. Clean Lakes Committee and Conservation Commission.
All right, give me a second. This is the DCR meeting.
Yep.
Yep. So was it, when the heck was it? It was on Monday.
It was a couple days ago.
Yeah.
That's all I remember.
Yeah.
Tim, you're too young to not have memories.
It's one day ago, it's not even a couple.
Don't I know it?
I know, it was Monday.
So we had a couple folks from DCR come to the meeting, the joint meeting with CLC and conservation, and they gave a good presentation on the invasives that we have in Spectacle Pond, Long Lake, and Forge Pond. And they kind of gave an overview of their experience treating those invasives, mechanical versus herbicides, and gave recommendations on what they would think, what they thought would be best for our situation at our lakes. We went into the eutrophication, prevention, the proper techniques of applying herbicide to avoid the muck islands. It was very beneficial, and I believe it was recorded too.
Yeah,
So
it
I
was.
can send you guys links to that recording when I get access to it.
I think what happened was they got a little bit off topic, that it was supposed to be scripted, ask kind of questions later, but then we got kind of in our own little quagmire of just never moved on from the first couple topics. So
Turned into a panel real quick.
yeah, so it was like just grilled to a halt. So there's definitely, I thought it was really beneficial. Look forward to what it was supposed to really be in its totality. So they do recognize that they need to have version 2 to do it again. So I think Tim, they're going to get back to us with another date.
Yep.
But I believe it was helpful.
Yeah, we're gonna see a lot coming out of this. I think. I think our folks around the lakes are going to push back a lot more on the use of herbicides, from the tone I was hearing, and the restrictions that are being applied to them right now. So probably get interesting over the next couple of years.
And then a couple months too. once
Yeah,
we
I guess even
some
a
of
couple
the
months, right?
new regs.
Kyle, can you clarify the pushback? You expected that to come from the DCR side of things or from
No.
local residents? Or it just
Yeah, I think our lakes committees are going to want to use the herbicide treatment, and based on what the CR was saying, that can be fine and dandy. It sounds like the water department currently doesn't allow herbicides to be used in at least one of the bodies of water. So I think it was very
know
clear
for-
that shouldn't be the case. Yeah, or that
For
it doesn't
Forge
need to be
Pond,
that
we've
way.
been pushing against that for as long as I've been here.
Yeah.
And, you know, the idea, once you start, that's it. You got to do it all the time.
Yeah.
And
And
it's more harmful in the long run than otherwise.
Michael, I think you'd really enjoy listening to that because some of the Q&As, they really did talk about that once you start, you got to keep at it. So they had some it was very well attended by their panelists and some of their experience on like Cochituate and things like that.
The real world examples that are right down the road were, they're pretty eye opening and large scale.
I definitely
case
like to see
studies.
it.
Yeah. Tim, if you happen to come across where that might be accessed, or if you could send that around to everyone, that would be great.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay. That concludes our administrative updates. Now the 750 discussion transfer of Nagog Hill Road parcel lot 107.
Oh, Sarah, we did have one more administrative discussion, the CPA application.
Oh, sorry.
That's okay.
It's all you. And you did such a great job writing it too. Sorry about that.
Oh,
Go ahead.
thank you.
Yep.
So did you guys have a chance to look at that application for the Frog Pond Walkway?
Yeah, I thought it was great.
a little more expensive than I expected, but it was, we'll survive, and I think worth doing.
I guess that's where I was going to go, Chase. I definitely had sticker shock for what I understood to be the project that was happening.
I had sticker shock just on the erosion control. We're in the wrong business.
Well, so
$5,000 in erosion control. That's kind of spicy, huh?
I think we could all put that up for half the price.
Yeah. So
had you had any feelers out with CPC at all? Like, did they any sort of a number that they were looking or expecting to hear?
So I really don't think they have a number to expect. Depending on how we vote tonight, I'll send it over to them, and tomorrow they'll get a chance to review it and vote on it. But yeah, I mean, it seems a little high, but ultimately it's, like we've been saying, something that's had to be done for many, many years, and costs are only going up for materials and labor. So we've got a great opportunity to get this going and get it safe and beautiful for the public. And yeah, if you guys are comfortable, I'm ready to.
I think one of the big drivers of cost is that they propose to take it down 12 inches and then build up a base for it. And what we've seen is we can't do something less substantial out there and expect it to survive. It's a tough environment. Taking it down 12 inches is a lot of work, but
Yep.
it's better in the long run.
Motion,
That would be great.
commissioners?
Sure, I'll make a motion that the Conservation Commission approves the Community Preservation Act application for the new walkway by Frog Pond that Andrews provided us.
Okay, do we have a second?
A second.
Perfect. All right, roll call vote. Carl,
I'm over, guy.
Ed,
Ed Poltai.
Michael,
Michael Livingston, aye.
Chase,
Chase Kirby guy.
Kyle,
Kyle Maxwell, aye.
Sarah,
Sarah Seward, aye.
myself, I. It's unanimous. Thank you, everybody.
And thank you, Andrew.
Thanks,
for
Andrew.
doing that, Andrew. Okay.
Sarah,
Can you remind me, where's this money coming from?
So this is going to be a recreation category CPA project. So essentially, CPA monies come from the 1% property surcharge as well as state matching funds. But this will go through as a recreation project as opposed to an open space project, just because we can't use open space money to basically put trails, parking lots. It's kind of like when we did the Oak Hill parking lot on Harvard Road. Technically, it was a recreation project as opposed to open space, but we'll probably take it from undesignated CPA monies if it's so approved. But I'll go ahead and forward it to the committee as soon as we get done tonight, and we'll be good to go.
That's great. Thank you.
All right.
Okay, and then last
Sarah,
one.
sorry, real quick,
Yep.
if you're still in administrative, I was thinking about the meetings. Is moving our next meeting back a week? Would that be an option to keep us away from any sort of conflict with their voting and passing of potential?
That's a great
virtual
question,
meetings?
and I think that would be on to Tim to know if there's anything that's come in where we have that window of 21 days and such. Tim, is there anything new that's come in?
No, there isn't.
Okay. We would, so Kyle, we'd have to make sure that we could secure a room as a backup for that following week. So Tim could look into that if the
The
commission would like to do so.
Right, yeah. I was just looking because we have 3 weeks. If we do meet in 2 weeks, the first, but then we don't have our next meeting until the 22nd. That's a 3-week gap, right?
Yeah, I like the idea of going to the 8th. It's April Fool's Day, the 1st, which is, whatever, but gives us a better chance of giving the state more time to do their thing.
Yeah, that was my thought.
It's a good idea. So Tim,
Is everyone okay with that?
Yep.
Okay, so
Yeah.
let's do this. So for the 24 hours, let's keep both on the books until Tim can look and see if there is a room available for us on the 8th. Or Andrew, you could do that.
Yep.
Just gonna say it was.
Tim's just gonna ask you anyways.
Yeah, exactly.
True. This is true.
Okay,
So I'll do that tomorrow.
super,
Awesome.
thank you. Okay, all right, so close of administrative discussions, and then the next is any updates or discussions, transfer of NAGOG.
Few different items. Number one, council got back to me a few days ago with the process. I know we were all very frustrated with sort of the last minute blindside about declaring the land surplus and all that. Council has essentially opined that that is the process. And so we will need the select board to do that. The timing of it is ideally done before they close the warrant, but it actually can happen afterwards. So we're okay on timing there. Item number, we're okay on timing and process. The select board charged us with figuring out process too. Second item is, let's say, the general receptiveness to making this change in care, custody, and control. The answer to that is, I think, more certain now than it was before. I've heard from several select board members, not voting as a block, but individually in conversations, all very supportive. Third item is the water department. Nick Lawler got back to me last week. They're still looking into some potential questions with access to the northern lot that we are not asking to take care, custody, and control of. They don't have an answer on that. But they're actively working on it with their engineering team to understand the trajectory. The fourth piece of this is that I attended a meeting on Friday with the select board, the conservation trust, representatives of the select board, representatives of the trust, and representatives of the Neshoba Praying Indians. It's my understanding that the select board, or at least members of the select board, are looking at finding a way to include the Neshoba Praying Indians in some use of the orchard. I don't think that impacts lot 107A, whatever the land that we're looking to take care, custody, and control of. That said, I do think there will be interest going forward if the Neshoba Praying Indians establish more of an agricultural presence there, alongside the APR leasee Brainerd that's going to do the majority of the work. There may be interest from the Neshoba Praying Indians in doing, let's say, cultural events or something like that on this land that we control. And what I generally said to them is, we've historically been very supportive of educational and cultural events happening on conservation land. So there may be some element of that in the future, but I don't think any of those things change us taking care, custody, and control of that land. So in summary, the last outstanding piece is Water Department giving us a thumbs up that they're happy with it. And frankly, even if they're not happy with it, then we just go back to the select board and say, we have one vision, they have a different one, and we will have to sort it out. The ideal scenario is they say, we're good as is. So, I'll
I know
probably ping Nick in a day or two, see where he stands on it.
Right. And I know that we've taken numerous votes on this internally with the commission. Chase, are we at a position now that once again, we just take another vote while we're all here to reaffirm our interest in taking lot 107A?
I think we absolutely should do that. I think we should also see if there's any public comment on this. I know we only have Rob Rounce in the audience, but
Yep.
we should make sure that that is reflected in our minutes, that we open it up for public comment as well.
Can I comment too? Go ahead. Yeah, Rob's
Oh,
there.
and we have Rob Rounce who may want to comment.
Go ahead, Rob. Rob, you're muted, just so you know, on your end.
Better?
Yep, all good.
Okay, thank you. So sorry. Yeah, I attended the select board meeting right before last town meeting. I was in quite a state of dismay. I certainly support what you're trying to do.
Thank you, Rob.
Great.
So the only comment I have on this, and I think I've voiced this in the past based on the way that meeting prior to town meeting had gone, was that one of their big sticking items was, we need to hear from the public. What does the public want this land? Because they've been burnt with that in the past, apparently, from their words. I haven't seen it. I'm not hearing that has been part of this discussion yet. And as much as I am fully supportive of taking over this land as conservation land,
You want to make sure to check that box?
Yeah, I don't want our commission to be the ones that look like now we're not looking out for the town's interest in hearing what the town wants the use of that land, even though that's what we've been trying to do, right? I fully agree that is our intent, and that's what we're doing. We think we're doing what the town wants with that land, but it seems like a pretty hot button topic in town right now.
So I think
I don't know
that's
how that
great.
happens,
So
but-
we have posted for tonight that we had a discussion on this. So how would you like to word it for the next meeting to have that? So Tim we can even say seeking public input, or how would you like to have that phrased?
Yeah.
Do we want to have like a formal public hearing?
Well, that's what whenever you have it on the agenda, that's a formal public hearing.
So, like tonight, it would be considered like a general discussion item, but if we post it as like a legit public hearing, maybe that would bring more people out.
Okay, so how would you like to change the wording?
So just list it as a public hearing, like we would normally do for an NOI.
Okay.
Just do public hearing, lot 107, input with regard to Conservation Commission possession and future use.
And that's the subdivision. So we used that wording a couple meetings ago. So Tim, I think you might be able to find some of that language.
Yeah. Okay.
Rob, did you put your hand up again? Or did I not take it down?
Yes, I did.
Okay, go ahead, Rob.
I just want to mention that MAPC is planning for another public engagement on the whole topic of the orchard on April 14th. If I heard it correctly, and I recognize I may have misheard it, but I think there might be a way, should you want to try to weave in a specific, brief comment period within that April 14th meeting, because I think they're talking about other aspects of the property in order to hear from the public, et cetera, consistent with what I just heard being stated. So I just want to throw that out as a possibility for you to consider.
Thank you for that. So Chase, if we meet on the 8th, I think what I just heard you say is that, are we under a specific calendar to get on for the warrant? Or
We do
don't?
not have a date. Yeah, there's certainly a timeline to get on to the warrant. I don't know what it is off the top of my head. Maybe Andrew does though. It's coming up.
Yeah, unfortunately, I don't know off the top of my head right now too, but I can check tomorrow. I know they didn't open until a week and a half, 2 weeks ago. So
Yeah, so my only question was, if we meet on the 14th, does that give us enough time?
we could always ask for a placeholder on the warrant as well. If
You said, I thought last time we talked about this, you said it was pretty late. We have heard the date. Somebody had mentioned the date, and it was later than we thought it was going to be. From what I remember.
yeah,
And my understanding of the select, and understand that I've only spoken to select members of the select board, but my understanding of their perspective is they're willing to deal with a placeholder.
Did you get that in writing?
The one thing, Chase, that you said that strikes me as no different than 6 months ago is that they are going to wait very late to make the vote to say, yes, we'll make this surplus and support going to the Conservation Commission. They told us that last time too, and look what happened. So that part still makes me uncomfortable. And maybe I'm being unfair to the selectmen because, like you said, you've spoken with a few of them separately.
In your defense, I had last time too. So I thought 6 months ago was a done deal. So I hear you, Ed. Let me push them a little bit more to make sure we're on their agenda. And I think the important piece, Ed, is that we apply leverage and make them make a decision certainly before town meeting, right? In a more easily accessible public forum too, where I think members of the public can participate as well.
Yeah.
Hey, those initials that Rob had mentioned, is that the municipal planning?
Mm-hmm. Yep, they had the first meeting. That's who we were supposed to meet with like a year ago.
Yeah.
We got the grant. So
How
now
did that, how
there's
did
one
that,
more meeting.
how did they just had that meeting, right? A couple weeks. How did that meeting go? Anybody go?
I stayed for, Rob, what time was it supposed to get over? Like 8? It was 6:30 to 8. I left, but it kept going.
Okay.
Rob might be able to answer that.
But
Yeah,
there's-
about 8:30 they ended the meeting.
But there was enough interest that they having a second one, or are they just
It was always planned and funded to do
Oh,
two.
gotcha.
Yeah, so they have to do two. So, okay.
One other question: what is their role? What's their role?
Paid facilitator. So they're getting public input, and someone else might be able to.
So they pay. They're supplying the facilitator for the.
Yeah, whole team. Yep, whole team. And they reached out months ago to some of the, people that had been involved in some of the committees as well. And what we could do is if we do meet on the 8th, they have a fairly lengthy email list. We could ask them to post for us that we're going to have a discussion on the 8th. So that way we would have reached out in addition to public comment.
I like that idea.
Yeah, that's a really good idea.
I mean, I don't have any issue with Rob's idea either.
I'm just wanting to get the time frame done so that way it doesn't get pushed for the select board when all of a sudden they're getting hammered from all the different input from other people for other causes.
Gotcha.
So,
And I can also see how we may be asked to have a separate discussion on this topic because this land is not actually part of the orchard and we don't, part of the APR land, right? It's
Right.
part of the orchard complex, but I'll work on this and figure out what the right mechanism is, but at a minimum, I like the idea of using the email distribution list to make sure people are primed to comment.
okay. Alrighty. Does anybody else have anything else? It is 9:04. Would someone like to make a motion to adjourn?
I move that we adjourn tonight's meeting.
second. All right, roll call vote. Kyle,
Kyle Maxfield, aye.
Michael,
Michael Livingston, aye.
Ed,
Ed Foltz, aye.
Sarah,
Sarah Seward, aye.
Carl,
From Melberg, aye.
Chase,
Chase Gerбig, aye.
and myself, I. It's unanimous. We are adjourned.